Captain Daeho Kim stood very still on the bridge of his ship, called Silent Thunder, and looked at the massive enemy fleet on his main screen. The alien ships hung in space, like angry metal monsters waiting to attack. There were 300 warships, from the Vorthak Empire, and each one was huge compared to his small human ship. The alien vessels looked like giant spears made of dark metal, and they were covered with weapons that could destroy entire planets. His communication officer, Su Jin, Park turned around in her chair and spoke with a calm voice even though she was scared. "Sir, they want to talk to us. They are sending messages on all radio channels." The main screen changed and showed the ugly face of Admiral Krex Tar, who was the leader of the alien fleet. The creature had 4 yellow eyes and a mouth full of sharp teeth that looked like knives. Behind him, other alien officers were laughing and making strange clicking sounds with their mouths. They thought this was very funny. Little human Admiral Krex Tar said in broken English that sounded harsh and mean. "You bring one tiny ship to fight our mighty fleet. This makes us laugh very much. We thought Earth would send all their warships, not just one small bug to fly around our formation." Engineer Taemin Choi felt angry and made tight fists with his hands as he worked at his control panel. For many months, Earth had tried to make peace with these aliens. The human diplomats offered to trade goods and live together, without fighting. But the Vorthak said humans were weak and stupid and demanded that Earth surrender completely. Now they had come to steal the solar system and make it their own. Admiral Krex Tar kept talking, and his electronic translator made his voice sound even more cruel. "Maybe we should catch you alive. You could be entertainment at our victory party. Your weak species make such interesting sounds when they feel pain." Captain Daeho did not move or change his face expression. He stayed, calm and quiet. Behind him, his crew of 12 people worked at their stations without making noise. Navigator Heejin Lee was looking at star maps on her computer screen. Weapons officer Jin Woo Nam kept his hands ready over the firing buttons, waiting for orders. They all knew this day would come, and they were prepared. The Vorthak aliens had made one big mistake. They thought humans were like all the other species they had conquered before, weak, scared, and easy to defeat. They did not know that humans had spent hundreds of years learning how to fight wars against enemies that were much stronger. They had never heard the old human saying about what happens when you corner a dangerous animal. The alien fleet started moving into attack position. The ship spread out in a perfect sphere around the human vessel like hunters surrounding their prey. Each Vorthak warship was 10 times bigger than Silent Thunder and had enough firepower to crack open moons. Their hulls were covered with advanced armor that could stop most weapons in the galaxy. Admiral Krex Tar appeared on the screen again, and his 4 eyes were glowing with evil pleasure. "Human Captain," he said with his horrible voice, "you have 30 seconds to surrender your ship and submit to Vorthak authority. If you do not, we will destroy you slowly and painfully. Then we will go to your Earth and make your people suffer for a very long time." The alien officers behind him were still laughing and making jokes. They thought this was the easiest battle they would ever fight. One small human ship against 300 of their finest warships. It would be over in minutes, and then they could begin conquering the human homeworld. Captain Daeho finally spoke, and his voice was quiet. "But very dangerous, Admiral. You seem to have misunderstood something important about my species. We did not send one ship because it was all we could afford. We sent one ship because it is all we need." The laughter from the alien bridge got even louder. Some of the Vorthak officers were holding their stomachs and making choking sounds because they thought this was so funny. A single human claiming he could defeat their entire invasion fleet. It was the best joke they had heard in years. But Captain Daeho just nodded to his crew and gave them a small signal. "Gentlemen, ladies," he said in a calm voice that carried across the bridge. "Activate protocol. Omega, show them why humans earned their reputation as the most dangerous species in the galaxy." The crew began pressing buttons and flipping switches on their control panels. The ship started humming with a strange energy that made the air itself feel heavy and electric. Engineer Taemin called out readings from his instruments while Dr. Mi Young, Han, the science officer, checked her complicated equations one more time. Young Soo Kang, the chief science officer, watched his screens very carefully and reported, "Sir, our quantum field generators are charging to full power. The fabric of space and time in this area is becoming unstable, just like we planned." What the Vorthak did not know was that humans had discovered something amazing during their exploration of space. While other alien races built bigger ships and stronger weapons, humanity had found the universe's most dangerous secret: the ability to break apart the invisible forces that held reality together. The Vorthak fleet finished moving into their attack formation. They had arranged their ships in a perfect sphere around the Silent Thunder, so the human vessel could not escape in any direction. It was exactly what Earth strategists had hoped they would do. The aliens were so proud and confident that they became predictable, and their predictable behavior would destroy them. Communications Officer Sujin spoke quietly. "Sir, Earth Command wants final confirmation. Once we start this process, there will be no way to stop what happens next." Captain Daeho looked around at the faces of his brave crew. These 12 people carried the hopes of 8 billion humans on Earth. Every person on the bridge had volunteered for this mission, knowing they might never see home again. They understood how important their job was and what would happen if they failed. Executive Officer Bora Shin announced, "All stations are ready. Captain Quantum Field Generators at maximum power, Cascade weapons armed and targeted. We are prepared to fire on your command, Admiral." Krek's tar face appeared on the screen one more time, and his expression was full of cruel joy. "Enough games, little human. Surrender right now and we will kill your species quickly. Continue this foolishness, and we will make everyone on Earth suffer for many generations." Captain Daeho stood up from his command chair and straightened his uniform. He looked directly at the alien admiral on the screen with cold determination. "Admiral," he said in a voice like ice, "you are about to learn why humans never developed a word that means giving up fire." The moment Captain Daeho gave the order to fire, something incredible began to happen. The Silent Thunder did not shoot regular weapons like lasers or missiles. Instead, the ship became the center of something the universe had never seen before. The quantum field generators deep inside the human vessel started changing the basic laws of physics in the space around them. Chief Science Officer Young-Soo Kang watched his instruments with intense focus as numbers and symbols flashed across his screens. "Captain," he reported, "quantum field generators are reaching the exact power level we need. The fabric of space-time in this region is becoming more and more unstable, just like our calculations predicted." What the Vorthak Empire did not know was that humans had discovered something extraordinary during their centuries of traveling through space. While other alien species focused on building bigger ships with more powerful guns, humanity had stumbled upon the universe's most dangerous secret. They had learned how to manipulate the quantum foam that held all of reality together. The discovery had happened by accident when human scientists were trying to build faster communication systems. Dr. Mi Young-han had spent 15 years working with mathematics that most people could not understand. Her research was supposed to help humans talk to each other across vast distances of space. But instead, she found something much more terrifying. She learned that under the right conditions, it was possible to create chain reactions in the quantum field that would spread faster than light itself. The Vorthak fleet was moving into their attack positions completely confident in their overwhelming superiority. They had no idea that every move they made was exactly what Earth strategists had predicted. The alien commanders were arranging their ships in a perfect sphere formation around the human vessel. They wanted to make sure the Silent Thunder could not escape in any direction. Tactical Officer Sang Ho-yu was watching the enemy ships on his displays and reporting their movements. "The Vorthak are positioning themselves exactly where we want them. Captain, each ship is moving to coordinates that we calculated months ago. They are trying to surround us completely, but they do not realize they are walking into a trap, Captain." Daeho smiled in a way that was not friendly at all. The aliens were doing exactly what humans had hoped they would do. Their pride and arrogance made them behave in predictable ways, and their predictable behavior would be the reason for their destruction. Every Vorthak warship was now positioned at precisely the right coordinates within the quantum manipulation field. The human crew worked with quiet efficiency that came from months of training and preparation. Each person knew their job perfectly and understood that the survival of their entire species depended on doing everything correctly. Engineer Tai-Min Choi was monitoring the power systems and making sure the quantum generators did not overload before the right moment. Navigator Hyejin Lee was tracking the positions of all 300 enemy ships and calculating the exact timing needed for maximum effect. Her computers showed that the Vorthak formation was almost perfect for what humans planned to do. The aliens had arranged themselves in the worst possible way for their own survival. Dr. Mi-Young Han was running final checks on her theoretical calculations. The mathematics behind quantum cascade reactions were incredibly complex, and even small mistakes could have terrible consequences. If the reaction was too weak, it would not destroy enough enemy ships. If it was too strong, it could spread out of control and destroy everything, including Earth itself. Communications Officer Soo-Jin Park was monitoring all the radio channels and listening to the alien commanders give orders to their fleet. "Sir," she reported, "Earth Command is asking for final confirmation. They want to make sure we are ready to begin. Once we start the cascade reaction, there will be no way to stop it until it burns itself out." The captain looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These 12 people had volunteered to carry the hopes and fears of 8 billion humans. They had left their families and friends behind, knowing they might never return home. Each person understood the terrible weight of what they were about to unleash upon the galaxy. Executive Officer Bo-Ra Shin was coordinating all the different systems and making sure everything worked together perfectly. "All stations report ready, Captain." She announced quantum field generators at maximum charge. Cascade reaction initiators are armed and targeted at the enemy fleet. "We are prepared to execute the attack on your command through the main view screen." Admiral Krextar appeared again. His 4 yellow eyes were gleaming with sadistic pleasure as he prepared to order the destruction of the human ship. He had no idea that his fleet was positioned exactly where humans wanted them. The alien commander was about to give the order that would trigger his own destruction. "Enough games, little human," the alien admiral said in his harsh electronic voice. "Surrender immediately and we will make your species' death quick and painless. Continue this foolish resistance, and we will make sure that every person on Earth suffers for many generations before they are allowed to die," the alien officers. Behind Krextar were still laughing and making cruel jokes about how easy this battle would be. They could not imagine that a single small human ship could threaten their mighty fleet of 300 advanced warships. Some of them were already planning how they would celebrate their victory. Captain Daeho stood up from his command chair for what he knew might be the last time he straightened his uniform and looked directly at the alien admiral with cold determination in his eyes. "Admiral," he said in a voice that was quiet but deadly, "you are about to learn why humans never developed a word for surrender in any of our languages. You are about to discover what happens when you threaten our home." The Vorthak officers stopped laughing for a moment because something in the human captain's voice made them feel uneasy, but then they remembered their overwhelming advantage and started making cruel jokes again. They thought the human was just trying to sound brave before he died. Young Su Kang called out final readings from his science station. "Sir, quantum cascade reaction is ready to begin. All calculations are complete and verified. Field generators are at maximum power and holding steady. We can initiate the sequence whenever you give the word." Dr. Mi-Young Han looked up from her equations one last time. "Captain," she said quietly, "once we begin this process, the reaction will continue until it exhausts all available energy sources in the affected area. The mathematics suggest it will burn out naturally, but quantum mechanics always contains elements of uncertainty." Engineer Taiman reported that all ship systems were functioning perfectly, and the quantum stabilizers would protect the Silent Thunder during the initial phase of the reaction. The ship would be safe in the center of the storm they were about to create, but only for a limited time. Captain Daeho nodded to his weapons officer Jinwoo Nam, who had been waiting patiently for the order to change Galactic. "History fire," he commanded. The moment weapons officer Jinwoo Nam pressed the activation button, reality itself began to scream. The Silent Thunder became the center of something that had never existed before in the entire history of the universe. A deliberately triggered cascade failure in the quantum foam that held space and time together started spreading outward from the human ship, like invisible ripples on a cosmic pond. The effect began very small, almost impossible to see with normal instruments. tiny fluctuations. In the quantum field moved away from the silent thunder at speeds that made light seem slow. The Vorthak fleet instruments detected some strange readings, but their science officers thought these were just background radiation from nearby stars. They had no idea they were looking at their own death approaching. Dr. Myung-han watched her displays with complete focus, as numbers and graphs showed the cascade reaction spreading exactly as her mathematical models had predicted. First wave. Propagation confirmed, she reported to Captain Dae-ho Quantum. Cascade is proceeding according to all our theoretical calculations. Impact with the first enemy ships in 15 seconds. Admiral Krextar was in the middle of giving orders to his fleet, commanders to open fire and destroy the human ship when something impossible happened. The Vorthak warship closest to Silent Thunder simply stopped existing. The massive vessel did not explode or break into pieces. It did not burn or melt or get torn apart. It just vanished completely as if it had never been built in the first place. The quantum cascade had reached that ship's position and convinced the tiny particles that made up the vessel's hull that they no longer wanted to stay stuck together. The atoms that formed the metal and electronics and everything else inside the ship suddenly forgot how to be a spaceship and scattered into empty space as individual particles. What sorcery is this? Admiral Krextar screamed as his four eyes opened wide with shock and terror. He watched 3 more of his mighty warships disappear in bright flashes of light that lasted only a fraction of a second. His science officers were frantically checking their instruments and shouting confusing reports about impossible energy readings. The cascade spread faster than light itself, following invisible paths through the quantum foam that connected all matter in the universe. Each ship that vanished released tremendous amounts of stored energy that fed back into the reaction, making it stronger and faster with every passing moment. The Vorthak formation that had been designed to trap the human ship had become a perfect arrangement for their own destruction. Second wave approaching navigator. Hyejin Lee called out as she tracked the cascade's progress on her tactical displays. The reaction is moving through the enemy fleet formation exactly as we calculated. Estimated 47 more vessels in the affected zone within the next 30 seconds. Captain Dae-ho watched with grim satisfaction as section after section of the massive Vorthak fleet simply stopped existing. The aliens' advanced shields that could stop planet-killing weapons were completely useless against an attack that operated on the quantum level. Their armor that could resist temperatures hotter than stars meant nothing when the attack convinced atoms to forget how to be solid matter. Engineer Taiman Choi was monitoring the Silent Thunder quantum stabilizers and making sure their own ship remained safe inside the center of the storm they had created. Captain, he reported, cascade intensity is increasing beyond our original projections. The reaction is feeding on dark matter particles in this region of space, which is making it much more powerful than we expected. This was the most dangerous moment of the entire mission. If the cascade grew too strong, it could tear apart the entire solar system, destroying Earth, along with the invading alien fleet. The calculations had been as precise as human science could make them, but quantum mechanics always contained elements of uncertainty. They were gambling with the survival of their entire species. The Vorthak fleet, which had seemed completely unstoppable just minutes before, was now in total chaos and panic. Ships scattered in all directions as their commanders desperately tried to escape the expanding zone of destruction. But the quantum field disruption followed them, moving through dimensions that conventional physics could not predict or control. Sir Weapons Officer Jinwoo reported with awe in his voice, "Enemy fleet strength is down to 208 ships. The cascade reaction is accelerating and consuming vessels faster than their computers can count. Some of the alien ships are trying to jump into hyperspace, but their drives are failing because space-time itself is becoming unstable." Admiral Krextar image appeared on the Silent Thunder main screen again, but his earlier arrogance and cruelty had been replaced by pure terror. "Stop this madness," he shouted at Captain Dae-ho. "What have you humans done to the fabric of reality itself? Our ships are disappearing from existence, and we cannot understand how or why the alien." Admiral Four Eyes were wide with fear as he watched his mighty invasion fleet being consumed by forces beyond his comprehension. Behind him, Vorthak officers were running around their bridge in panic. Some were praying to their alien gods while Others were frantically trying to contact their home planet to warn them about the terrible weapon humans had created. Captain Deho looked at the tactical display where red symbols representing enemy ships were disappearing one after another, like lights being turned off. His expression remained cold and determined as he replied to the terrified alien commander. "We warned you. Admiral, humans do not surrender when our survival is threatened. Instead, we adapt and evolve and create new ways to protect what we love." More Vorthak warships vanished in brilliant flashes as the cascade continued spreading through their formation. Some alien vessels tried to use their own weapons to destroy nearby ships, hoping to create gaps in space that might slow the reaction down. But this only fed more energy into the quantum cascade, making it grow stronger and more destructive. Chief Science Officer Young-Soo Kang was tracking the reactions, progress, and reporting updates to the Captain Sir. The cascade has now consumed over 90 enemy vessels and shows no signs of slowing down. The quantum field disruption is spreading in 3 dimensions, simultaneously making it impossible for the remaining ships to predict safe escape routes. Surviving Vorthak commanders were broadcasting desperate messages to each other, trying to coordinate some kind of defense against an enemy they could not see or understand. Some ships attempted to link their defensive systems together, while others tried to create artificial gravity wells that might disrupt the quantum field. But nothing worked against humanity's ultimate weapon. Dr. Mi-Young-Han looked up from her calculations with growing concern. "Captain, the cascade is drawing additional power from vacuum fluctuations in empty space. It is becoming self-sustaining across multiple dimensional layers, which was not part of our original theoretical models. This reaction might continue much longer than we initially predicted." The possibility that their weapon might become permanently active was humanity's greatest fear during its development. If the cascade became truly self-sustaining, it could theoretically spread throughout the entire galaxy, destroying everything in its path, including Earth itself. The mathematics had suggested this was impossible, but quantum physics was full of surprises. Communications Officer Sujin Park reported, "Sir, we are receiving multiple surrender requests from surviving Vorthak vessels. They are offering immediate withdrawal from human space and promising never to return if we will stop the cascade reaction." But the terrible truth was that the cascade could not be turned off like a normal weapon. The quantum reaction would continue until it exhausted all available energy sources or encountered conditions that would disrupt its propagation patterns. They had unleashed something that operated beyond human control, guided only by the unchanging laws of physics. The Vorthak fleet that had seemed like an unstoppable force of destruction just minutes before was now completely scattered and running in pure terror. Ships that had once moved in perfect military formation were fleeing in all directions as their crews desperately tried to escape the expanding cascade zone that was consuming everything in its path. But no matter how fast they ran or which direction they chose, the quantum field disruption followed them like a hungry monster fleet command. To all vessels, Admiral Krextar's voice was cracking with fear as he broadcast emergency orders to his remaining ships. Full retreat status. Execute emergency hyperspace jumps immediately. Abandon all formation protocols and escape at maximum speed, but hyperspace offered no safety from humanity's quantum cascade weapon. The disruption affected the fundamental structure of spacetime itself, making faster-than-light travel completely impossible within the affected region. Vorthak ships that tried to activate their hyperdrives found their engines failing in catastrophic ways. Some vessels tore themselves apart as they attempted to enter dimensions that no longer existed properly. Dr. Mi-Young-Han was watching her instruments with growing alarm. As new readings appeared on her screens, "Captain," she reported, "the cascade is drawing power from vacuum fluctuations and zero-point energy fields throughout this entire region of space. It is becoming self-sustaining across multiple dimensional layers, which means it might continue spreading indefinitely." This had been humanity's greatest fear during the weapons development phase. If the quantum cascade became truly self-sustaining, it could theoretically spread throughout the entire galaxy, destroying not just the Vorthak fleet, but every planet, every star system, and every form of life in its path. The mathematical models had suggested this was impossible, but mathematics had been proven wrong many times before. Tactical Officer Sang-ho. Yu was tracking the movements of surviving enemy vessels on his displays. Remaining Vorthak ships are attempting to establish some kind of defensive perimeter at maximum sensor range, Captain. They appear to be trying to contain the cascade effect, using gravitic field generators and artificial black hole technology. The Vorthak scientists were incredibly intelligent, and they were learning about the quantum cascade very quickly. Their advanced instruments had detected the true nature of the attack, and they were attempting to use massive gravity manipulation devices to compress space-time and slow the cascade spread. It was actually a brilliant approach that might work under different circumstances. Unfortunately for the alien fleet, the cascade had already grown far beyond their ability to contain or control. Each ship that vanished released tremendous amounts of stored quantum energy that fed directly back into the reaction. The Vorthak fleet advanced technology was being used as fuel for their own destruction in a process that grew stronger with every passing second. Sir Communications Officer Soo-Jin Park reported, "We are receiving desperate transmissions from the Vorthak flagship. Admiral Krex Tar is requesting immediate ceasefire and offering unconditional surrender of his entire invasion force. He says they will withdraw from human territory permanently and never return." Captain Daeho stared at the tactical display, watching red symbols disappear one by one as the cascade consumed more alien vessels with each passing moment. The mighty armada that had come to conquer Earth was being reduced to scattered survivors fleeing in terror from a force they could not understand or fight against. Their technological superiority meant nothing against a weapon that attacked reality itself. Captain Executive Officer Bora Shin spoke quietly. "Earth Command protocols specify that we should accept surrender when enemy forces demonstrate genuine submission and request mercy. But given the nature of our weapon system, immediate ceasefire may not be possible." The terrible truth was that the quantum cascade could not simply be turned off like conventional weapons. The reaction would continue until it exhausted all available energy sources in the region or encountered specific conditions that would disrupt its propagation patterns. They had unleashed something that operated beyond human control, guided only by the immutable and unchanging laws of physics. Dr. Han. Captain Daeho called to the physicist. "What is your current assessment of cascade duration, based on energy levels and available matter density in this area, based on present quantum field intensity and the amount of matter available as fuel?" Ma Young replied, "The reaction should theoretically burn itself out within approximately 43 minutes. However, if the cascade encounters Jupiter gravitational field or follows the fleeing Vorthak ships toward their home star system, the additional dark matter and exotic particles could extend the duration significantly." The implications were absolutely staggering. The cascade was not limited to this single battle in Earth's solar system. It could potentially follow the surviving alien ships back to their own territory, spreading across interstellar space and destroying the entire Vorthak civilization, along with any other species unlucky enough to be in its path. Young Su Kang looked up from his science station with worry in his voice. "Captain, we are detecting massive gravitational distortions spreading toward the outer planets of our solar system. The cascade appears to be interacting with Jupiter electromagnetic field in unexpected ways." This was exactly the scenario that had kept Earth scientists awake at night during the weapons development phase. The quantum cascade could potentially destabilize entire star systems if it encountered the right gravitational and magnetic conditions. Jupiter, enormous mass and powerful magnetic field, were feeding energy back into the reaction, making it stronger, rather than allowing it to dissipate naturally. More Vorthak warships disappeared in brilliant flashes of light as the cascade continued its relentless expansion. Some of the alien vessels tried to sacrifice themselves by overloading their reactors, hoping to create explosions that might disrupt the quantum field. But even these desperate measures only provided more energy for the reaction to consume. The surviving alien crews had stopped trying to fight back or coordinate their defense efforts. They seemed paralyzed by the realization that they were witnessing something completely beyond their understanding or ability to counter their most advanced weapons, and defensive systems were useless against an attack that operated on the fundamental level of reality itself. Admiral Krex Tar appeared on the communication screen one final time, but his 4 eyes were dull with complete defeat, and his voice was Barely a whisper. "Human Captain," he said, "we surrender unconditionally to your species. We will withdraw all Vorthak forces from your territory immediately. We will never return to this region of space. Please, in the name of whatever gods you worship, stop this destruction before it spreads beyond your solar system." Engineer Taemin looked up from his engineering displays with growing alarm. "Captain, if we do not find a way to disrupt the cascade propagation pattern very soon, the reaction could reach Earth orbital space within 6 hours. Our own planet could be at risk from the weapon we created to protect it." The bridge of Silent Thunder fell into tense silence except for the soft humming of instruments and the distant sound of space, itself being torn apart by forces that humanity had never intended to release into the universe. Captain Daeho closed his eyes, feeling the crushing weight of command and the terrible responsibility that rested on his shoulders. They had succeeded. In their primary mission, the Vorthak invasion had been completely destroyed as a fighting force, but their victory might come at the ultimate cost of destroying everything they had fought so desperately to protect. The weapon that had saved Earth from conquest might now become the instrument of its annihilation. Dr. Mi-Young-Han worked frantically at her console, trying to find some solution in her quantum equations. "Captain," she said finally, "there is only one theoretical possibility that might disrupt the cascade propagation. We would need to create an opposing quantum field of exactly equal magnitude and opposite phase. But that would require—" She stopped speaking as the terrible implications became clear to everyone on the bridge. "It would require sacrificing the Silent Thunder and her entire crew." Executive Officer Bora finished the sentence quietly. "We would have to overload all our quantum generators simultaneously and create a controlled implosion at the exact center point of the cascade reaction." The 12 people on the bridge held the fate of billions in their hands, faced with a choice that would echo through the history of human civilization. As the quantum cascade continued its relentless expansion, consuming more and more of the Vorthak fleet, Captain Daeho faced the terrible weight of what humanity had unleashed upon the galaxy. The tactical display showed only 62 enemy ships, remaining from the original invasion force of 300. But these survivors were scattered across a region of space that was rapidly becoming completely uninhabitable. Captain Chief Science Officer Young-Soo's voice was filled with strain and worry. "We are detecting massive gravitational distortions spreading toward the outer planets of our solar system. The cascade reaction is affecting Jupiter's electromagnetic field in ways our computer models never predicted. This could have catastrophic consequences for the entire star system." This was exactly the nightmare scenario that had kept Earth scientists awake for years during the quantum weapons development program. The cascade could potentially destabilize entire solar systems if it encountered the right combination of gravitational fields and electromagnetic radiation. Jupiter's massive gravitational well was feeding tremendous amounts of energy back into the reaction, making it stronger rather than allowing it to burn out. Naturally, Dr. Mi-Young-Han was working frantically at her physics console, recalculating the cascade projected path using new data from their sensors. "If the reaction reaches Jupiter core," she reported with growing alarm, "the gravitational resonance effects could create a permanent feedback loop. The cascade would become self-sustaining indefinitely and could spread throughout the entire galaxy." The surviving Vorthak ships had completely stopped trying to fight or flee from the expanding destruction zone. They hung motionless in space like broken toys, their crews apparently paralyzed by the realization that they were witnessing something far beyond their understanding or ability to comprehend. Admiral Krextar's face appeared on the main communication screen one final time, but his 4 eyes were now dull and lifeless with complete defeat. "Human vessel," his voice was barely audible above the static caused by quantum field distortions. "We surrender unconditionally to your species and beg for mercy. We will withdraw all our forces from your territory immediately and never return. Please, by whatever gods exist in this universe, stop this terrible destruction before it consumes everything." Engineer Taemin looked up from his control displays with growing panic in his voice. "Captain, if we do not act within the next few minutes, the cascade could reach Earth orbital space within 6 hours. The reaction is accelerating as it encounters more matter to consume, and our own home planet could be at risk from the very weapon we created to protect it." Captain Deho closed his eyes and felt the crushing weight of command pressing down on his shoulders like a physical force. They had succeeded brilliantly in their primary mission. The Vorthak invasion had been completely eliminated as a military threat, but their total victory might come at the ultimate cost of destroying everything they had fought so desperately to save. Dr. Han, is there any possible way to disrupt the cascade propagation pattern or slow its expansion? He asked the physicist, hoping against hope for some solution that would not require the ultimate sacrifice. The scientist shook her head with grim finality as she looked up from her calculations. The only theoretical possibility would be to create an opposing quantum field of exactly equal magnitude and opposite phase characteristics, but generating that much quantum energy would require. She paused as her face went pale with the realization of what she was about to say. It would require sacrificing the Silent Thunder, and everyone aboard Executive Officer Bora Shin finished the terrible sentence quietly. We would have to overload all our quantum field generators simultaneously and create a controlled implosion at the exact center point of the cascade reaction. The explosion would have to be precisely timed and positioned to cancel out the cascade energy. The bridge fell into complete silence, except for the soft humming of instruments and the distant sound of space itself being torn apart by forces that humanity had never intended to release into the universe. 12 people held the fate of billions of lives in their hands, faced with a choice that would determine the future of human civilization. Navigator Hai-Jin Lee was the first to speak, and her young voice was steady with determination, despite the tears in her eyes. Sir, we all volunteered for this mission, knowing the risks involved. If our sacrifice can protect Earth and stop the cascade from spreading to other star systems, then we have no choice but to act, belay that order. Captain Deho interrupted firmly. There has to be another way. We cannot give up so easily. There must be some solution that does not require us to destroy ourselves and our ship. But as the minutes ticked by and the cascade continued growing stronger, while spreading toward the inner solar system, they all knew the horrible truth. Humanity's greatest weapon had become humanity's greatest threat, and only one choice remained to prevent total disaster. Communications Officer Sujin Park was monitoring transmissions from Earth, and her voice was filled with emotion. Sir, Earth Command is requesting constant updates on our situation. They want to know if evacuation of the inner planets should begin immediately. The cascade could reach Mars orbit within 4 hours at current expansion rate. The thought of billions of humans fleeing their homes in panic while Earth itself faced destruction from their own weapon was almost too terrible to contemplate. Captain Deho opened his eyes and looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These brave men and women had volunteered to save their species, and now they faced the ultimate test of their dedication. Tactical Officer Sang-Ho Yu reported that the remaining Vorthak ships were attempting to use their own technology to help contain the cascade. Several alien vessels had begun broadcasting technical data about quantum field manipulation, hoping that sharing their knowledge might help stop the reaction before it destroyed everything in the solar system. The irony was bitter. The same aliens who had come to conquer and enslave humanity were now desperately trying to help save Earth from destruction. Their advanced science might have provided solutions under different circumstances, but the cascade had grown beyond the ability of any known technology to control or contain. Engineer Taemin was running final diagnostics on the ship systems, preparing for what everyone knew was coming. Captain, he reported quietly, all quantum field generators are functioning at optimal levels. Ship structural integrity is holding steady. We could execute the implosion sequence whenever. You give the order. Dr. Mi Young-han completed her final calculations and looked up with tears streaming down her face. The controlled implosion would need to be perfectly timed and positioned. She explained, the quantum field collapse would consume our ship instantly, but it should create a vacuum effect that pulls the cascade energy into itself. The reaction would essentially devour its own power source. Young Su Kang monitored the approach of the cascade toward Jupiter and reported that they had perhaps 10 minutes before the reaction reached a point where even their sacrifice might not be enough to stop it. Captain, we are running out of time. The gravitational resonance effects are beginning to amplify the cascade beyond our ability to counter. Captain Deho stood up from his command chair and walked to the main view screen, where he could see the distant glow of Earth hanging in space like a blue jewel. He thought about his family, his friends, and the 8 billion people who were counting on him to make the right choice. All stations prepare for quantum implosion sequence, he announced, and his voice carried clearly throughout the ship. Engineering begin overload procedures on all quantum field generators. We will show the galaxy that humans protect what they love no matter what the cost. The final act of heroism did not come with grand speeches or dramatic gestures, but from quiet professionalism and absolute dedication to duty as the quantum cascade threatened to consume their entire solar system and spread beyond into the galaxy. The crew of the Silent Thunder prepared for the ultimate sacrifice with the same calm efficiency they had shown throughout the entire battle. All stations prepare for quantum implosion sequence, Captain Deho announced, and his voice carried throughout every section of the ship with clear authority. Engineering begin overload procedures on